Hey guys, Scarlett Darkwood here. I want to talk a little bit about the concept I heard of called the divine tears or the divine grief. And I want to start out by sharing a little bit of an excerpt sent by the Rosicrucian Order Amorc that I received through their text messaging system when you're a member. And I wanted to share that with you, and I want to talk about that after I read it. So listen up, this is really good. Be humanistic. Regard all humanity as your family. Beyond race, culture, and belief, all human beings are brothers and sisters. Consequently, they all deserve the same respect and consideration. And this was an excerpt from the Rose Croix Code of Life. And it says that really we are all one in the divine. That each one of us, though we are individuals, we are part of a whole. And sometimes that's really hard for us to keep in mind or to think about. We are taught that in Christianity at times in some ways. In paganism or Rosicrucianism, same type of thing. We are all brothers and sisters, and we should treat each other like family. You're probably not going to like everyone, just like in our own families, there are, people we clash with. But what about if you are out somewhere and you see people who don't have what you have, who are having a hard time, and they're just having a very different life experience than you are? Rosicrucians teach that through our lifetimes, there are times when we're the master and times when we're not. We are put through our different lifetimes to experience different things, different states of being. Some of that's really wonderful and some of it not so wonderful. You think of people with chronic conditions who are born certain ways and you wonder, why does that happen? And it's an experience that person is going through in their lifetime. You may go through it in another. It just depends. So, what got me started with this concept of the divine and why I thought that excerpt was so good is I was hearing a man tell his story about his life in Beirut, Lebanon. He was in Lebanon, and he came from a really wealthy family. He had a lot of privilege. He could do things a lot of the others couldn't do. He could go to nicer restaurants, museums. He had good schools. He grew up in a very diverse environment. He grew up Christian, but there were people who were Islamic. There were Jewish. There were all kinds of people around him. So he had a really diversified group that he grew up in and that he connected with. And there was nobody pushing anything on anyone. People accepted each other for what they were, and they respected each other's different customs and religions. And being from a background of privilege, he got to experience all kinds of things. And he told of an instance where he was on his way to the movies, and on his way he saw a little boy just crying in the streets. And he knew this little boy was from a different world than he was, that this little boy didn't get the experiences and the privileges and the things that he had. But when he saw that little boy crying, he knew they were about the same age. And he said, when I looked at that little boy, he said, something happened to me. He said, I saw that this little boy was my brother. He said that could have easily been me, and that we just got placed in different situations in our lives. But he said, I knew right away that little boy was my brother. And my heart went out to him, and I wanted to help in some way. So he, over time, joined organizations and joined in ways to help other people in many different ways. And he wanted to reach out and help those less fortunate. Also during this time you had a war going on, and we've all heard about those wars in the Middle East. And he said, the news only shows you one part of it. He said what it doesn't show you is a lot of the tragedy that people experienced, a lot of the hardships, a lot of the pain, and a lot of the suffering. And what they also didn't show was the act of kindness that resulted from that. People, though they may not have had much, or they may have been injured, or they may have experienced whatever level they did from the outcome of that war or an attack, they still pitched in to help each other. And then, of course, you had other people from the outside helping as well. But he said that never got shown. It never showed that. And part of the Rosicrucian teachings teach that we learn different experiences, and in those we learn compassion. And I have found that kind of applies to me too. Luckily I haven't been in a war or been attacked like some of these people in other parts of the world, and I don't have a first-hand experience on that. I hope I never do. I don't wish that on anyone. But I've looked at myself when I've had instances of health issues. Like I've had a couple of hips replaced. I mean, just because I was born with bad hips. Or, I had a gallbladder surgery, or, through a blood clot, or, different things, from after that surgery. Just different things happened to me. I was lucky enough that I had insurance and could rise above it. I had health care, I had great doctors, had a good family. Luckily, I could mostly take care of myself after surgery. But what that taught me was what people with health care issues can go through. Before I had the hip surgeries, I was in a lot of pain. I had osteoarthritis, and it was very uncomfortable. It wasn't as an excruciating pain necessarily, but it was a needling one that would absolutely drive you crazy. And one night I just remember sitting up and just bursting into tears. I'd had all I could stand. I thought my husband was going to come in the room and say, "What is going on?" But luckily he didn't wake up, and that was just my moment to myself. But it taught me a little bit about why people can be in such despair when they have chronic pain. Or, after the surgery, what it's like to try to recuperate from that. Those little bitty bites taught me a little bit of compassion, or at least allowed me to have more compassion than I perhaps had before, because I know a little of what that can be like. And so it puts me in a better position to be understanding, so that when someone is telling me their story about a medical condition or why they can't do something because of X, Y, and Z, I understand that more. And I can process that information differently, and I can have more compassion with it. Now, you might say, well, what do you do to help people then? I'll just put it this way. By virtue of my own personal situation, I help people by default anyway. But do I do a lot extra? There are enough people in my family members that need extra help. Now, some of that is by choice, and some of that is just by, their own personalities that get them into trouble. I don't do a lot more outside that, and I'm thinking this upcoming year, or, soon, I'd like to probably reach out a little bit more. This past Christmas, we donated a toy to Toys for Tots. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, and it was actually my mother who did it, but in a moment of seeing that on QVC, she thought it was so cute and thought, I would love to give that to some little child because, little baby Yoda is so popular. So she didn't know how to get it to an organization or to a child. She thought maybe something like someone from the angel tree might work. Well, usually on those angel trees, they are wanting specifics. So my husband and I decided to take her toy to Toys to Tots. Now, it doesn't sound like much to us. You're thinking, it's just a toy, who cares? But to a little child who doesn't have a lot going on for them at that moment, or they don't get all these fun toys that everybody else seems to get, that may have meant the world to them. That brightened their moment, even for a moment. And in a child's world, that's very important. I mean, think back to when you were younger and how things just filled you with wonder and excitement, and that you were really lucky that your parents were able to get it for you. So that was one thing that my mother did. My mother also sends money to various charities too, She wants to help out. She has a few that she will donate to because she likes what they stand for. And I have to admit that's something that perhaps my husband and I may need to start doing. And so you're thinking, what do the Rosicrucians teach in this? Well, the Rosicrucians have a law of Amra that they talk about. And I don't know what Amr stands for. I'm going to have to find that out. I've asked people and nobody can give me an answer. So if anybody knows what that stands for, let me know. But basically, when you practice law of Amra, you are practicing kindness to other people, even in a small way, even if it's letting somebody go first in line because they're bogged down with, groceries or just a lot of items that they're needing to, get home to their family. Maybe if somebody doesn't have enough money to pay for something at the grocery counter and you say, hey, you know what, I'll pay the rest of it. It's, I don't know, donating to a cause, maybe working for the rescue mission in your community. A lot of things like that. There's a lot of ways that we can get active and help, and maybe a lot of you do that already. If so, that's fantastic. But that is the act of kindness or things that we would like to do for our brothers and sisters who don't have what you or I might have. I feel very privileged that, I've been able to get most anything I want that I needed. I could meet my basic needs and health care when I needed it. I'm also very mindful that I'm a step away from not getting that. If something changed in my world, I could be in a set of unfortunate circumstances, as probably most of us could be. We just don't want to think about that. I try to be mindful of things like that. The one thing I have started doing, and one thing that Rosicrucians do teach, is that I have set aside a day of the week, usually Friday or a Thursday, because those are the ruling, the planets rule on those days, where those are days for healing, or they're just magical days for healing. I try to take time to go sit at my altar and go into my sanctum, and I close my eyes. I do my Rosicrucian invocation to get to my celestial sanctum, or my space. And what I do when I'm there for the next several minutes, I envision the world, and I envision people in general being surrounded by a white light. Sometimes it's yellow or blue. It just depends on what that vision is at the moment. But I envision them being surrounded by light and a lot of love, a lot of hearts. I envision people being taken care of, being prosperous. And you may think, well, what does that do? Well, our thoughts are things, they reverberate outward. And people aren't taught that in traditional religions, but in Rosicrucianism and probably, paganism too, that your thoughts can radiate outward, and that when you move forward that way, or you take an action that way, it ripples outward to where it affects everybody. And that's a really difficult concept to think about. It's hard to fathom sometimes, but imagine throwing a stone in the river or in the lake and it ripples outward. Your input like that ripples outward, so that even sending thoughts of positive vibration and love and caring and prosperity to others, or to the world, to the planet, to other people in need, that makes a difference. So that is one small step that I have started to take this year, and I hope to continue it. And I hope you consider that too. And I hope that you find your own way to meditate and spend a few minutes one day a week, or if you want to do it every night, that's fine if you have a routine. Let me know in the comments what your experience is, how you do this, what your thoughts are on this. And maybe when somebody has shared some kindness with you when you least expected it. But the important thing to remember is that these experiences are, as this man said, the divine sadness, the divine tears. And it's to make us aware that we are all brothers and sisters, and that at any moment, we could be in a situation in need, and that we would greatly be so relieved to have help from the outside or from someone else who was in a position to give it. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please give it a like. And if you like my channel and you want to hear more about the occult, Rosicrucianism, please subscribe to the channel. I am an author. I do write fiction. If you would like to support me in my work by buying a book, or buying something in my Etsy shop that you think might help you, that would be great. If you want to relax by drinking some tea, which I absolutely adore, I have an affiliate link to Club Magic. Their teas are fantastic and very soothing to the soul. Hope everyone has a great week. Practice the law of Amra with someone or a group of people. See you next time.